Okay, so based on our evaluation, we are proposing today that Brandon be eligible as a student with a learning disability in the areas of reading comprehension and math problem solving, which is a different eligibility than what he had, but it will still be placed in the resource setting with in-class support. So based on this data and what we are proposing, are we in agreement that this will be the best placement for him?
Yes.
Okay.
Mom, do you have any questions?
No.
Okay. At this time, we can review his current levels of performance and student progress.
Okay, so we recently did state benchmarks in class. We did reading and math. In his math, it showed he was not meeting expectations for what he is supposed to be doing in 4th grade. He was below. It also projected that he will stay below, that he is not on the range of catching up at the moment. Reading was also below, and he's supposed to be at a level in our reading assessment kit, but he is actually on a level L. So he's made some progress since the beginning of the year, but not where he needs to be on those things. So we are still working, trying to get there.
Yes, and he has a history of intense intervention in tier 3, in our multi-tiered systems of support, and then he's been receiving now resource. And so some of these things, his levels aren't as low as we would typically see in these eligibilities, but that is just proof that his current services are working, so that's good.
Mm-hmm.
But there's still some academic need and deficits that we need to address. So
Right, he's still struggling. And his behavior, at the beginning of the year, he was doing very well. And then when we got the dog bite, it kind of has regressed some. And when he is not understanding something in class, he acts out because he doesn't want people to know he's not understanding. So there's frustration there. In general, his behavior is not horrible, but it's just not where it could be because we saw better at the beginning of the year. So we're still struggling there.
okay, so we are seeing how the injury to his leg from the dog bite is affecting his ability to be successful at school. So is there anybody that has like expertise in that area or wants to weigh in on something that we can do to address that, or do we feel like that's getting better? What are your thoughts on that?
I'm thinking since it's pretty recent, it might be a cry for help. I think he's still really in pain and struggling. He's had the infection. I think that's caused some problems from what the doctor's notes have said. So I'd like to give it more time to see if he gets back to where he was. He's been through a lot, that with the dog bite and all of that. When we talk about progress with me, us going in there, we definitely don't see, he's definitely very receptive to us coming in and being by him during lessons. I think it's less embarrassing maybe for him. It's not, if he doesn't understand it, it's a lot easier to say, hey, I don't understand this, than it is to be like, hey, I don't understand, So, so I have great hope. I mean, last year when, he used to come to our room and he really didn't like that. And he really closed the gap last year. We were about 2.5 years behind. Now we're about a year behind, so we definitely closed the gap. So I feel very comfortable doing push-in with him. I do see him making growth when we're in there. I'll go over the goal. We've only had this goal about 22 weeks. Normally we do 36 to 32, somewhere around there. But because we had to move his annual up due to his reeval due, so he's only had these goals he's only had this goal about 22 weeks, and he's already at 62% mastery. So I do see that he is making great growth. That's, at this point he should be at about 40%. He's well above that. I think truly if we had the whole IEP period to go over it, I think he would have mastered this. I have no doubt in my mind at the growth he's been making. So I do see growth in him. I have the great pleasure of getting him from year to year, so I can kind of see it as he's growing. So I have more to refer back to, you know, because I've had him multiple years now.
And then Mom, I know in our previous history going over how he's doing, he's struggled with self-confidence and his ability levels. So what are you seeing at home in response to these things?
I mean, at home he plays a lot of video games and kind of comes in and out of the house in the evenings. I work at night, so brother takes care of him and make sure he goes to bed on time. But when I get home late, he's still up playing his games, so it doesn't sound like he's going to bed when he should be.
Okay. All right.
Do we have any special considerations at this time?
No.
Okay. We do not need to look at a transition plan, because he is under the age of 14. So at this time, we can discuss his new proposed goals and accommodations.
Okay. So his new goal is, he has 2 math goals now. By the end of the IEP time period, using Check for Understanding, Brandon will use mathematical processes to acquire and demonstrate mathematical understanding in solving single-step multiplication and division word problems. Success will be measured using daily work, tests, and observations at a rate of 85%. And then his second math goal is, by the end of the IEP period, using Check for Understanding, Brandon will use mathematical processes to acquire and demonstrate mathematical understanding in solving multi-step addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, word problems. Success will be measured using daily work, tests, observations at a rate of 85%. And then we have his new reading goal. By the end of the IEP period, using Check for Understanding with feedback from the student, Brandon will read aloud instructional level stories with fluency, rate, accuracy, expression, appropriate phrasing, and comprehension. Success will be measured using daily work, test, observations at a rate of 90%. Do you have any questions about those goals?
No.
Okay.
And at this time, there's no need for any change of placement, so we can go over his proposed schedule of services.
Sure.
So his schedule of services for both math and reading are going to be in-class support. We've gone over our consideration of it being direct, but he responds well to in-class support, and it is least restrictive as compared to direct. And we are proposing that for both math and reading, he get 30 minutes of that in-class support 4 times a week. Okay, his grade is also assigned by a combination, so our resource or our gen ed can provide the grade that most reflects where he's at and how he's progressing and how he's performing on those things in class.
The next thing on our agenda is to consider district-wide and statewide assessments.
So we want to go ahead and cover accommodations?
Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped
Sure,
that
no
part.
problem,
Yes, let's
no
go back to
problem.
the accommodations.
All right. Allow time for a cool down break. That's across the board in electives, specials, English, math, science, and social studies. Extra time in electives, specials, English, math, science, and social studies. That is to be agreed upon with the special ed teacher. Note-taking assistance, we used to just have that in math. I would like to add that across the board due to his comprehension disability now. So he might be having a hard time understanding what he's hearing and that kind of thing, so we'd like to move to that. Preferential seating in English, math, science, and social studies. Reminders to stay on task in electives, English, math, physical education, science, and social studies. Math supplemental aids, blank hashtag chart, blank fraction strip, and completed 1 to 120 chart. We would also like to add content and language supports for him now with his new eligibility. That would be a great help for him to use in class, to learn that in class, to be able to use that on his state testing. And that's where they give you, when you're on the computer, if he has a question about a word, he can click on the word, it'll pull up a picture or a definition and give a little more explanation about the item that he is struggling with. It also will go back and say, in paragraph 18, what did this word mean, it'll go back and read him paragraph 18, where on most testing, we don't get to read the, passages to them, so that will help there too. So, that's what my proposal is, that we add a content language supports.
Mom, did you have any questions about that?
No, that all sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you, Michelle, for going over that. I
No problem.
apologize for
No, it's
skipping that. So now we can discuss his district-wide and statewide assessments. Let's see. This year he will take the STAR assessment in reading language arts and in math. He does have a few STAR accommodations. We can go over those now.
So for STAR reading, reminders to stay on task and extra time, and then we'll be adding content language supports because we've added that to his daily accommodations, and since he'll be using that with Fidelity, we have the right to add that to his state testing and district testing. And then in math, we're gonna do reminders to stay on task, extra time, the supplemental age, which is what he also gets in class, which is blank hashtag charts, blank fraction strips, completed 1 to 120 chart, and then we'll also add content language supports that like we added in his daily accommodations to that.
And are there any district assessments that he will take?
He will take all district assessments. At this time, there's no need for him not to take any of them.
All right. And the LPAC is.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're not gonna discuss LPAC, that's not applicable in this evaluation. Graduation, he's still too young for us to talk about transition, which is usually happening around the age of 14. We do not have any extended year school considerations this time. He's progressing on his goals, and we're not expecting that any regression will occur for him. We're not in need of any transportation at this time, and we are also going to ensure that he is receiving services in his least restrictive environment, which means that he is being educated in his least restrictive environment to the maximum extent possible as compared to his non-disabled general education peers, so that he can access the general education curriculum. So we do consider his resource placement and in-class support to be in that range. And then we are gonna go over our SHARS notifications, and then I'll go through deliberations if we don't have any more questions. So our SHARS notification is for us to be able to provide your student's name in a list of students that we serve in order to collect for services for Medicaid. Do you still grant your permission for us to use his name in that list?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, and then is there anything else that we wanted to cover today as a committee?
No.
Okay, and then we're in agreement that his current eligibility that we're proposing is what we want to move forward with?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
And then Mom, you do have those 5 days to think about moving forward with these changes in his services and eligibility, or would you like to wait those 5 days and go ahead and start immediately?
I'll go ahead and wait the 5 days.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna go over our deliberations, and then we will have our assurances, okay? All right. Today's date is November 22nd, 2024, and this was an ARD held via in-person for Brandon Smith. No one has identified themselves as being an attorney, and the meeting is not being recorded at this time. Interpretation services were not needed, not applicable for this meeting. A confidentiality statement was read by our administrator. This is an annual reevaluation ARD. His FIE is dated October 24th, and it remains current. It was reviewed and discussed. Reevaluation is due by October 24th, 2027. Brandon meets eligibility criteria for special education as a student with specific learning disabilities in the areas of reading comprehension and math problem solving. We did review and go over current progress from our special education teacher, our general education teacher, and parent. We did go over our current progress and determined that his eligibility does affect his involvement and progress in general education in the areas of English, math, science, and social studies. Special considerations were considered and reviewed. Assistive technology was also considered and not needed at this time. Prior IEP goals were reviewed and progress towards mastery was discussed. The ARD committee did review and accept new and proposed goals. Parents did receive those goals along with the full and individual evaluation at least 5 days prior to this meeting. The ARD committee reviewed and approved proposed accommodations. We went over the schedule of services. It was proposed and approved, and the recommended program will be in-class support from Resource. Brandon will participate in all district and statewide assessments. We did approve his testing plans for him. Extended school year services was considered, but is not needed at this time. Brandon is able to retain skills and there's no indication of regression. Brandon is being educated in his least restrictive environment and was agreed upon by the ARD committee. Our Medicaid SHARS was reviewed with the parent and accepted. And then deliberations were reviewed and we are about to hear our assurances. Our recommended IEP effective date is going to be 11/25/2024. Parent was in attendance and we are ready for our assurances.
Okay, so based on the information gathered in this meeting, I do have some assurances to provide to you. The first one is the IEP committee assures that special education placement is as close to the student's home as possible based on peer-reviewed research and not developed solely on command of the English language. The committee assures that special education placement is not based on deficiencies directly related to a lack of educational opportunity, different culture, or lifestyle. The IEP committee assures that the student is being educated with students their age who do not have disabilities to the maximum extent appropriate to their overall educational needs. The IEP committee assures that all instruction and related services specified in the IEP are provided to the student at no cost. The district assures that each teacher who provides instruction to the student with disabilities will receive relevant sections of the student's IEP and will be informed of specific responsibilities related to implementing the IEP, such as goals, benchmarks, accommodations, modifications, and other supports needed. If there are no further questions, we can summarize and wrap up today's meeting.
Okay, awesome. I think that's all that we have for today. And everyone can go ahead and go, and then Mom, I'll stay here with you if you have any more questions and to collect your signatures for consents. Okay? All right, thank you.
Thank you.